For this video, I will be talking about Breath of Fire 2, an entry in Capcom's Breath of Fire RPG series. Despite Breath of Fire 2's connections to Breath of Fire 1, Breath of Fire 2 stands on its own well and does not require knowledge of Breath of Fire 1. I will now get into the premise of Breath of Fire 2. The game begins with a prologue in which the game's protagonist, Ryu Bateson, is shown as a little boy living in the town of Gate with his younger sister Yua and their father, a priest and powerful wizard named Gainer. Yua runs to the forest behind Gate, and Gainer tells Ryu to go and find her. Ryu tracks down Yua and finds her sleeping below the head of a giant dragon, which itself is sleeping atop a mountain behind Gate. Gainer finds the kids not long afterward, and he and Yua head back to Gate. Before Yua heads back to Gate, she tells Ryu to try sleeping underneath the dragon's head, and Ryu does so. After Ryu wakes up, he returns to Gate to find that Gainer and Yua are missing, and that nobody in town remembers who the three of them are. The new town priest, Hulk, lets Ryu stay at the church, and during this stay, Ryu meets a young anthropomorphic dog named Bo. Eventually, the two boys leave Gate to look for another town. The two happen upon a cave, and inside the cave, Ryu is attacked by a large demon named Baruberi. 10 years later, Ryu and Bo are working as rangers in a guild in Hometown. One day, Bo gets framed for stealing from a house in Hometown, and Ryu makes it his mission to find the real thief. I will now talk about the story. The dialogue can be hard to understand because the game unfortunately was not translated well. This game's translation is even worse than Final Fantasy IV's first English translation. Fortunately, the dialogue is not incomprehensible, and it does not take away from the complex, deep, and emotional story that Breath of Fire 2 has. The story includes several greatly varied subplots that strengthen the main story, fit the game's atmosphere, and greatly add to the emotional side of the game. The game also well employs a wide variety of emotions that the spelling and grammatical errors fortunately do not detract from. The playable characters are complex, likable, and greatly varied in terms of design, personality, and battle abilities. The playable characters I especially like are Ryu, Bo, a part human, part tiger girl named Kat, and Nina, a girl with black wings. The game also has likable non-playable characters, including Nina's younger sister Mina, an elderly man named Nero, and a priest named Rei. The great anime-like art style, the fantastical and greatly varied environments, and the colorful, detailed, and well-drawn graphics give the game an atmosphere similar to an animated fantasy epic, and the atmosphere is a great fit for the story. Another nice touch to the story is Ryu's dragon tear, a pendant that was left behind by his mother, and which shows a color depending on the feelings a character has towards Ryu. This adds to the emotional side of the story very well. I will now talk about the gameplay. The combat is smooth, deep, and fast-paced. Battles are played out in rounds. Each round is preceded by a segment where the player chooses the actions for the party characters to perform. This segment gives the battles depth and strategy. Within each round, the enemy actions and the chosen party actions are done in an order depending on the character's respective speeds. The characters are greatly varied in terms of stats and attacks, and each character has their own character-specific action, giving the combat large amounts of depth and strategy. I love Ryu's dragon spells, with which he turns into one of multiple dragon forms. I also love Bo's healing magic and his shot ability, which can instantly kill enemies, and Nina's attack magic. The battles are made more fun by the sprites and the music. The sprites in battle are well drawn and fit the game's atmosphere. The sprites are also well animated, and the attack and spell animations by player characters or enemies are fun to watch and add excitement to the battles. The excellent battle songs add intensity and excitement to the battles and go well with the game's epic fantasy animation atmosphere, and the battle victory song is very satisfying. I especially like the boss battles because of the boss designs, the boss's attacks, and the boss songs, which I personally like more than the standard battle music, which I still love. I also love how the characters have character-specific actions outside of battle, and great ones at that. To give a couple of examples, Ryu can access a fun fishing minigame, and Bo can use his own crossbow to hunt animals for meat to use as recovery items. Another great out-of-battle feature adding variety and depth is the shaman system. Basically, there are shamans that can fuse with Ryu's teammates and enhance the stats or abilities of the teammates. This adds depth and strategy to the combat and adds to the replay value already given by the number of greatly varied playable characters. The home base of Ryu and Company, a place called Township, greatly adds replay value to the game. With the wide variety of people the player can invite to stay at Township, and the idea of building a town is engaging. I will now talk about the soundtrack. I like most of the songs in the game, but a few songs are either overused or nothing special. I personally find the dungeon music to be repetitive and overused. I also think that the towns could have been more varied in terms of music. However, when the soundtrack is good, it is great. My favorite non-battle songs include the map music, the Windiest song, the Semaphore song, the Castle song, and two emotional songs called Left Unspoken and Don't Even Think About Dying. The rest of my review gives away several major plot points. I love how the map music changes as the story progresses. I find the three map songs to be excellent, and they all fit into the atmosphere and the story segments in which they play. The first map song goes well with the beginning of a journey and with the initial lightheartedness of the atmosphere. The second map song goes well with Ryu finding the criminal I mentioned in the premise, and goes well with the story starting to get deeper and more intense. The third map song goes well with the dark third act and with the end of the journey getting close. I also love how the standard battle music changes as the story progresses. The first standard battle song goes well with the initial lightheartedness of the atmosphere, and the second standard battle song goes well with the darker second half of the game. Just to give context for the rest of my review, the dragon behind gate is Ryu and Yua's mother Valerie, and she is protecting a seal containing the game's main antagonist, a powerful demon named Death Evan. Death Evan's followers created a fake religion called Saint Ava's Church to trick innocent people into believing Death Evan is a good god named Saint Ava, and to trick people into strengthening Death Evan and help it escape imprisonment. Valerie offers to release the seal so that Ryu can destroy Death Evan sooner rather than later. If the player chooses to wait for Death Evan instead, the player is shown the bad ending. I will now talk about what happens after the player chooses to fight Death Evan early. The player gains access to the game's final dungeon, Infinity, which is a great dungeon due to its design, graphics, and excellent song. The song goes well with the end of the game coming up and with the intensity and challenge of Infinity. I love the scenario which takes place about halfway through Infinity in a village called Dologani, which is home to the Dragon clan which Valerie comes from. The scenario is great because it reveals a large portion of the game's backstory and reveals that Valerie is the dragon behind gate. The second half of Infinity ends with two great battles, a rematch against Baruberi and the final battle against Death Evan. The Baruberi battle has a great and fitting song, and defeating Baruberi is satisfying payback for Baruberi critically wounding Ryu in the prologue. There is also great dialogue before, during, and after the Baruberi battle. The final battle is immediately preceded by an emotional and well-structured sequence. Death Evan kills Ryu's teammates early in the sequence, and immediately afterward, one of my favorite scenes in the game occurs. An enraged Ryu struggles to control himself, then starts running angrily towards Death Evan. The music in the scene is excellent, the scene is well animated, and Ryu running as explosions occur around him is exciting. The scene which occurs immediately before the final battle is heartwarming and reassuring. Ryu's teammates are revived, they join back up with Ryu, and they start the final battle in a satisfying way. I will now talk about the final battle itself. The final battle itself is great because of Death Evan's detailed and well-drawn design, his powerful and intimidating attacks, and the excellent song. The song goes well with the dark atmosphere created by the immediately preceding sequence, Death Evan's design and attacks, and the end of a dark, fantastical mission. The battle ends in a satisfying way with flashes of light and with Death Evan fading away with rumbling sounds. I will now talk about the endings. There are 3 endings to the game: a bad ending, a standard ending, and the best ending. All I will say about the bad ending is that I don't like it and that I find it in no way satisfying. The other 2 endings start off the same and both end with the same cast of characters sequence. Ryu and party leave Infinity victoriously, and shortly afterward, Ryu realizes that Death Evan has only disappeared and has not been destroyed. Ryu then considers turning into his strongest dragon form to seal Infinity like his mother did. In the standard ending, Ryu turns into his strongest dragon form while separated from his friends, seals the entrance to Infinity, and falls asleep. I find this ending bittersweet because while Ryu is separated from his friends, he helps keep the world safe from Death Evan, and he knows that he eventually will either see his friends again or see their children. The best ending is not only better, but a lot better, and one of my favorite scenes in the game. Before Ryu can turn into a dragon, Gainer flies Township above Gate and calls to Ryu, saying that he did not raise Ryu to abandon his friends. Gainer then crashes Township into the mountain to seal Infinity. I find this more satisfying than Ryu using himself to seal Infinity. Ryu is free to travel with his friends, the entrance to Infinity is better sealed, and Gainer feels like he has made up for the loss of Valerie, for which he blames himself. The cast of characters sequence I mentioned earlier is great, because of the song, the gameplay clips, and the Dragon Tier moments. My only problems with the ending are that the names leave the screen too quickly, and that some of the names in the sequence do not match the respective names used in the main game. The gameplay clips make for a great retrospective, and the Dragon Tier moments between the clips add to the retrospective. To clarify, during a Dragon Tier moment, the Dragon Tier shows an image of a major story character. My favorite Dragon Tier moment shows Valerie with young Ryu and young Yua. The song is a beautiful and triumphant song and adds to the retrospective with its remixes of the map songs. The cast sequence ends in a satisfying way with the Dragon Tier showing Gate and with a great and fitting use of the great title screen song. Overall, Breath of Fire 2 remains a strong RPG thanks to its great atmosphere, colorful graphics, likable characters, and deep and engaging gameplay. In addition, despite its poor translation, Breath of Fire 2 still manages to present a complex and emotional story. That concludes my review of Breath of Fire 2. Take care.